Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Actionable AI series, part three. Today, we're going to talk about productivity. For those of you who have signed up for the prior two webinars of this series, I would love to hear your feedback. This is an accompanying series to go along with our AI guide that we put together earlier in 2023. It's a fully built out guide about AI in higher education. So today we're going to talk about actionable AI in productivity. Productivity is the number one thing that everybody thinks about when they think about AI. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Artis Kadu. I'm the founder and CEO of Element 451. These webinar series is put together by Enrollify, a community of higher education professionals, where a podcasting network as well. So please go to enrollify.org and sign up for the podcast and the great content from there as well. So as part of these webinar series, there's going to be 5 of them. The first one was around making sense of AI. So just giving you a grounding on what AI is, what the different types are, giving different examples. The second one talked about AI for student experience, or actionable AI for student experience. And today we are talking about AI for productivity. The next 2 parts are going to be later in the month. So we have some great stuff prepared for that as well. But today we're going to talk about AI for productivity. So when you think productivity, something really comes to mind for me, and I have this vision of a conveyor belt or a factory line or anything like that. So I wanted to share with everybody this video.
Ethel, I think this. I think we're fighting a losing game.
Quick raise of hands. How many of you are big fans of I Love Lucy? This is one of my favorites. We're a huge fan of this particular episode as Lucy goes through and she starts eating all the chocolates and the conveyor belt just keeps on going and going and going. So something very funny here, but as we go through and we think about it, I Love Lucy was filmed in the 50s, and over the last 80 years or so, only 60% of today's workers are employed in occupations that didn't exist in 1940, right? So a decade before Lucy was set up. So if you think about that, where we are today is that like 60% of us that have jobs today, the jobs that we're doing, these jobs did not exist in 1940. So that's amazing how technology has progressed and how we're doing very different things from the 1940s or even 80 years ago. And this is accelerated more and more and more. The internet didn't exist. There's huge industries that didn't exist back then that's kind of opened up productivity for us. So the economy and society overall kind of banks on the idea that we're going to go through these transformations as we go on. Let's move it a little bit further up, right? Here's another one. So let's talk about email. We write email every single day. And this is another clip. For those of you who don't know, this is a clip from Bruce Almighty, which, if you haven't watched the movie, please go and watch it. It's amazing. And it's really, really funny. So Jim Carrey, huge comedic actor, but this is very typical, for example, of how we feel internally. When we start writing those emails or when we get up in the morning, we have the best intentions. I feel so good after about 30 minutes.
Good. Okay, I had to have made some kind of a dent by now. Oh, come on! Oh.
And by 10 o'clock, I feel like Jim Carrey, as he's progressing through his emails, and my inbox is full again. So I really need to kind of get going and feel like I'm inundated, right? And of course, AI can help in that. So here's an interesting graphic that I found very, very funny. Like, as we think about AI, for some of us, we haven't even touched AI and we haven't even thought about it. what it is, what it does. So, we have this misconceptions, or perhaps we have the notion that somebody, has used it. And at the very minimum, you think about it is like, well, okay, AI turns this single bullet point into a really long email I could pretend I wrote. And on the other side, people are like, oh man, I wish I had something that summarizes, all these emails into just a bullet point, just into the most kind of dense thing. So AI makes a single bullet point out of a long email I can pretend I read. So I found this comic very interesting because for a lot of us, when we look at AI today, or when we think about it, kind of the introductory point is like, well, when we think of productivity, it's like, well, I wish I didn't have to write a lot of emails. I could just write bullet points and expand it and let AI do that. On the other side, it's like, I wish I could summarize that. So this is just a very naive and I would say very low entry point in terms of what AI can do, right? So AI can be a lot more helpful than that. So AI can help with our productivity, with our emails. It can help us every single day amplify that work that we're doing. When you think about the impact that the productivity of generative AI and AI, how it's going to impact our society over the next few years, as we saw how 60% of the jobs that we do today didn't exist 80 years ago, more and more of those jobs are going to be created in the future that are going to be based on AI. But some of the jobs are going to be lost that we have today because of the productivity of AI, but also up to 30% of the hours of work that we do today can be done by AI, especially for those knowledge workers. So McKinsey and Company has, we kind of reference this study quite a bit because it breaks it down very easily, where you see here us in higher education and even when we talk about sales and marketing and customer operations, we talk about sales and marketing, admissions, marketing, customer operations is current student success. So like working with our students. So these areas here, the impact of AI with very little investment can contribute very drastically in terms of the productivity of the global economy, could add trillions over a year in the global economy because it can be so productive. Now, most of us have seen the productivity has been gained by ChatGPT. ChatGPT has been the tool that has had the highest productivity today over the past year. So it's single-handedly been one of the contributing tools that has helped us to write better, to do a lot of different things better. Of course, it gained about 100 million users in 2 months. For some of you who have attended some of our webinars, we'd like to talk about this quite a bit. So it's been really, really interesting to see how this single tool has done that. But underneath, there's this very foundational models that are very, very smart. And now we're gotten to a place where we can trust technology to be productive and to help us as knowledge workers to really rely on that. You had, in the 90s and even or 2000s, you had Clippy, right? It's like try to be a helpful assistant, but it couldn't really do much. So everybody kind of put it aside. But ChatGPT is the first technology and the first kind of bot that has been contributing to our way of making a huge difference really, really fast because it has competence and we feel we admire it because of what it can do, right? So this is a slide from some of the human perception on how we perceive technology, right? And ChatGPT is on top of there. So we perceive technology on these two different axes, the competence, how likely is it to do the things that we want it to do, and then how warm, how can he interact with us in a very similar human way. So ChatGPT really stands out there. And as we move forward, right, as we go into 2024 and we start thinking about, well, how are we interacting with these systems? How are we interacting with these tools? There is the integration or the introduction of what we call natural language. So the ability for us to engage with the technology in a natural language through text or through voice in a conversation, and having this really, really amazing foundational models and great AI models in the background, that those are the reasoning engines. It's the ability for all of that smarts and the easy interface is going to transform how we interact with these tools and how we can be productive to offload a lot of the things that we do today to these tools or different AI. Of course, we're going to look at a lot of tools today and we're going to start thinking about different use cases. But think about the combination of a very easy natural interface and the power behind these tools. And what's happening is that I have BC in here. Before ChatGPT, forget about all that stuff, right? After ChatGPT, it set a new standard of how productivity and how we interact with these advanced technologies to help us be more productive as knowledge workers, right? And there's certain things that we do. And you think about the progression there. Every sector and every tech company is building AI assistants or AI tools or is enhancing their technology in order to accommodate and to incorporate AI because we're now able to perform better and better on those tasks. You see kind of a diagram here or a timeline rather of where we are. So with Jasper, GPT-4 was announced, last year. Bing Chat, you guys probably saw. Google Bard, we'll talk about that. Microsoft Copilot is making huge investments in that. Of course, this is the Element 451 BoldBot and Copilot we introduced last year and have kind of built and advanced on it. Salesforce has their own Einstein Copilot in 2024. However, a lot of the technologies and a lot of the tools that we're using are going to have baked in this AI assistance. Let's get a little bit more focused as we set the ground for, okay, the future is going to look very different. All these tools are going to get these AI capabilities. And now we have to start thinking about, okay, what are the use cases and how can we think about these use cases today that we can start applying or start looking at those use cases or those workflows through the lens of AI, through the lens of productivity. How can I change? How can I make this task faster? How can I do it faster, better? How can I automate things? And there's three different areas where AI plays a huge role in productivity. The first one is content generation in terms of producing new stuff, producing content, video, producing images, producing text, producing audio. So that's a huge area, and we'll take a look at some clear examples there. The second one is knowledge discovery. Most of the things that we do every single day is things like I look up something, I need a policy, I have a question, I go Google. We spend a lot of time on Google researching, finding things, knowledge discovery, internal knowledge. I go find something from a white paper, or I ask, my people on Slack or people on Teams, hey, how do you do this? Or what's the process for this? So that's knowledge discovery. That is a big, big part of how we spend our day every single day. Content generation is a small percentage of it, but knowledge discovery and that research, it's such a huge percentage, and we take that for granted a lot of times, right? We don't think about it as AI, but Google has been a huge productivity booster for a lot of people in the past doing that. And then the last one, we're going to talk about actionable insights. This is really around data and working with data. In the past, working with data and data analysis and all of these things have been put into the realm of data analysts or data engineers, people who are, very good at writing code or writing SQL or writing and all that stuff. But now this has come to a place where this AI technologies can produce those assets and can work with you in order to work with data in a very natural way, just like you have an assistant on the other side. So let's take a look at all these three areas and go into some examples. So when we look at it for content generation, of course, there could be a lot more in here, but I have split it up into 4 different areas. So if you need to write, edit, summarize, analyze a piece of text or an image, use ChatGPT first, right? So that's kind of a rule of thumb. Now, of course, you can use, one of the other chatbots as well, Google Bard or even Anthropic Claude. So you can use those, but personally, I tend to use ChatGPT quite heavily as part of it. 4 different areas in here. Email writing. No one likes email, so use AI to write or rewrite or personalize effective emails quickly, right? Enhancing communication with students and staff. A lot of times you can copy and paste and say, reply to this, and here's my tone, and here's how I want to do it. You can write email content for students if you're sending communications to them one-on-one, or if you're sending communications in bulk, you can certainly do that. Or if you're replying back to an alumni, or if you're replying back to a parent and you want to be very tactful on how you reply back, AI can massage those messages and can write very, very specific messages that you can just tell it how what you want the tone and so on. This is table stakes, right? So email writing, that's table stakes. The idea here is that this gets incorporated in some of our tools that we use every day, and we'll show you kind of how that works. And we're doing some work there, but ideally that's going to move towards the tools that you're using. So it's going to be in your Gmail, it's going to be in your Element inbox, it's going to be in your Microsoft Outlook, the ability to kind of write these. The second one is web and marketing content. We talk about crafting compelling web content and marketing material that resonates with your audiences. Not everybody's a good writer, right? And sometimes you have to go to a writer, but then, they need to learn about a specific audience and the style and the brand of the institution. So this kind of shortcuts that quite a bit. And now everybody has the ability to publish and to have web and write marketing content. In this case, you can also produce images as well, but we're talking about text just specifically. The third one, repurposing content. You have a piece of content and you just want to repurpose it for other areas, right? So you want to transform it for different context. You take a letter, for example, that's full of legalese that was sent to the faculty, and it can be transformed into engaging email or an engaging thread to students or to the community in seconds, right? So the content is there, you're just transforming it. So again, picking the use cases. The fourth one that I find that very interesting, and I think this was an idea from one of our speakers or one of the partners, is distilling complex faculty research into accessible summaries, making this academic insight more approachable for wider audiences. Sometimes we just care a lot about what our faculty are doing, and as part of institutions where a lot of research is happening, a lot of documentation is happening, we can do that as well. So as we talk about the chatbots or the tools that you should be using, which are your foundational AI tools. ChatGPT, that's a big one. Bard and Claude. So I have all those three in here. Now, when you go to ChatGPT, and we'll go in there and just show you a really good example, you have to be really good at trying to write certain prompts or prompting the AI. And 2023 was all about how do we become better prompt engineers and better prompt designers. And that's not going to go away. However, the world is evolving. And a lot of these chatbots are introducing packaging of these prompts into what they're calling chatbots. So there is the prompts, there is the instructions. So they're specifically built to accommodate a specific use case. So think about, what they have in here. OpenAI announced that this week they're going to open up the GPT store where you can go in and explore GPTs for different use cases. And we'll take a look at it in just a second, but it's not available yet as of this webinar right now, which is January 10th. So hopefully it's available later today or maybe tomorrow or by Friday for sure. But they're going to open that up, and now you can download or you can use a GPT, which is the equivalent of the AI apps. So it's like this is the AI app store, so to speak, right? Where if we need to do something, we're going to just get a GPT that somebody built, for us. You can also build your own. So let's take a look at what that looks like, right? So here in ChatGPT, I have all of my things in here, but then when I go to explore, it takes me to my GPTs, right? I've built a few of them, and we use them for our teams internally here at Element as well. Things like hooks and sales coaching and grad growth hacker, for example. But today we're going to look at one specific one, which is an editor bot. And this is an interesting one. So I'm going to use this one. And this is AI content editor that provides a checklist of copy improvements. So remember I said, okay, you can use ChatGPT to write or to analyze or to do. But in this case, sometimes it's really hard to read a piece of copy and provide very clear details to somebody, on this, right? And even yourself, when you're writing a piece of copy, you might want to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our website and I'm going to actually copy our header text in there. I'm going to copy and paste that header text in here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit go. So this GPT is built, I built this one to give you feedback on 6 specific parts, right? Part 1, talking about specificity, right? When you write good copy, you have to be very specific. And the second one is truthfulness. Does it resonate? Is it true? Like, what's the truthfulness of this? The third one is awareness level, right? It's the content, targets, and audience, but which awareness level of the problem of the writing that you're writing is this particular audience. So when you look at this, it's like it's very clear. It's like the content lacks specific details about how AI platform engages students or how it helps, which is fine, right? It's at the top of the image, but then it says gives me some suggestions. In terms of the truth, the claim the only solution truly powered by AI could be seen as potentially misleading. Of course, we don't believe so. So that's why we put it there on our website. But this is, this is something as an editor you can pick out, or the AI picks that out. Awareness level, same thing. So I won't go too much into this, but then the crisp and punchy writing, telling you how to do it, the why read this part, it's important to understand why you're supposed to read this particular text, and then the clickbait detector, right? So again, it kind of flagged that the only solution truly powered by AI. So we're looking for this six specific writing and editor feedback on copy to provide actionable feedback to our writers. So this is a bot that we use internally for that specific type of writing. So again, these bots are going to be available as part of the GPT store for a lot of different users. So this is a private one to us, but of course, ask your marketing department or even yourself. You can build an institutional GPT that kind of embodies the language and has all the components of writing. In the future, I can see this being a place where every institution has their own bot and has a academic bot or has different bots. But again, you don't update them very often. They don't connect to your data or anything like that. They're a little bit more static right now. As we look at these, there's a couple other tools that I'm a big fan of. We don't use copy.ai, but this is another great tool for your team to build some workflows around copy. There's another tool called Jasper. So Jasper, we were big fans of Jasper before GPT-4 came around, but then we found that we could write some of the really good prompts, and Jasper has now evolved since then to become more of a platform. So highly recommend it if you want to keep your team in the same place. However, ChatGPT just announced their team plan today, so you can now share prompts and share GPTs and things like that with your team, which makes it a lot easier to share stuff internally. The last one that I wanted to show you was this Cast Magic. So if you're doing videos or webinars and things like that, it's a really great tool for turn audio content into pull pieces apart, right? What it does, it kind of, let me show you an example here, what we've done. So we loaded in overcoming recruiting engagement challenges, which is a webinar. It did transcribe that for us, but then when you go to the AI content, what it did is actually does things like give you, recommendations on titles for that particular webinar or video that you upload in there, gives you YouTube keywords, finds different clips that can be quotes or hooks or timestamps, so you can pull from that, pulls out key topics, that you can use, pulls out, for example, an email newsletter. So you can do that, YouTube to tweets, questions that somebody can have about it, the threads, and Instagram timestamp overviews, YouTube descriptions. So this is kind of a workflow tool that's doing all that stuff. All you have to do is upload the video, and it's kind of going through those workflows. And in the future, the norm is going to be not you typing all those prompts, but having these tools do the workflow for you as you're moving through them. Now, when you think about it, is like you think about your students on how this is done with your data, you're like, well, I don't want to go to ChatGPT all the time. So at Element, we said we're building Bolt Copilot, which is another very similar to ChatGPT, where we're using the underlying technology, but it's actually, we're writing the campaigns, we're doing knowledge assistance. We actually have a lot of tools in there like content generation and editing, the draft personalized replies or email, campaign builder, landing page builder, an AI collaborator, much more. So what that does, let me show you a quick view of that here. This is under Element. We have Copilot, and you can interact with it, and you can say, in this case, showing you a ready built campaign, but this campaign is working through, and it's actually building a campaign to apply for a biology program. So you're going through it in a natural interface or in a natural language. It's building the outline for you for those emails. It's searching the knowledge base that you've loaded in there, all your content on your website. It's writing those emails for you and the text. And then at the end is actually building those directly into Element, right? So you can go and take a look at them as part of the communications and HTML in here. So this is how these tools are evolving, and this is kind of where we're going towards. It's co-pilots working in your CRMs and in your content itself, rather than somewhere else. All right. So as we move forward, then the second part that we're talking about is around research and knowledge discovery. So when you need an answer, AI got you, right? So it's able to give you answers for whatever you need. And this is one of the areas that it's perhaps the largest opportunity for organizations. Like I said, we do spend a tremendous amount of time. Even today, we release new features for our products. We have different partners or customers that are asking different questions. And our internal teams are trying to find questions from our engineering team, from our customer success team, from our marketing, from our growth and partnerships team. So everybody is communicating and trying to get answers from each other. And that's a huge area that we focus on. The first one that I kind of skipped in here is all about the research part, right? So going to Google, and we talked about that a little bit, going to Google, enhancing search capabilities to essentially kind of pull those information together. But before, you had to go to Google and pull the links together. Now you can go in and you can synthesize many links into the question that you want. And I'll show you a really great tool for that. And then the last one is around, again, like that staff onboarding and Q&A. It's like utilizing how do you onboard somebody very quickly so they can get all their questions answered, simplifying their onboarding, providing this instant answers to policy process, and so on and so forth. So that's the opportunity that we see here in knowledge discovery. It's these three different areas: the research, the organizational knowledge. And there's one really great tool that I really like, and I've written a lot about this on LinkedIn and even more, but this called Perplexity.
Whether you're navigating the maze of headphone options, drowning in news noise, or stalled on your Japan trip plans, Perplexity Copilot is your guided search assistant. Just turn on Copilot and ask. It takes a deep dive into anything you want to know and delivers tailor-made, concise answers. Forget about diving into a sea of links. Copilot does the legwork by grasping the essence of your question. To fine-tune your search, Copilot engages you with clarifying questions. This ensures you get what you're actually after. Once it gets what you're asking, Copilot scours a vast array of sources to ensure relevance and quality. Want to know more? Every source is just a click or tap away for deeper exploration. Let's say you asked a quick question, but the answer wasn't what you were looking for. Easy. At the bottom of your quick answer, hit Rewrite and select Copilot to turn your quick search into a guided search experience.
So rather than, we're going through that, you guys can see kind of the opportunity here. Think about this as like a Google and ChatGPT coming together, and that's exactly what it is. So I use Perplexity every single day. So again, we can go ask those questions and it will kind of stream them in. And what it does at the end is it gives you kind of related questions, or it asks you, hey, maybe you have some other interest in here. So it's kind of the guided search. And one of the nice things is you can see the links that it's referencing. So I can go directly to one of those links and I can see where it pulled that information from or where its sources are. This is probably the best way, if you don't use ChatGPT for this knowledge, to use Perplexity for it. All right. So we got if you're really interested in AI and tools and kind of topics, I have a brand new podcast called Generation AI with myself and Dr. JC Bonilla. JC works at VaynerMedia as the head of analytics there. But we talk a lot about AI. And in episode 4, we talked about the AI toolkit essentials, what tools and skills you need for 2024 to succeed. So things like Perplexity and Notion, and a lot of those tools are in there. They're in the show notes with links. Go and subscribe and take a listen at Generation AI. We're going to drop episodes every week, usually on Mondays. We'll drop some bonus ones as well. So it's a great resource for you to keep track of AI in higher education and larger topics as well. And one part that I missed there before from Element Copilot was we have the same thing. During our last session on how chatbots can be the first line of defense, Copilots is the same thing. It's a chatbot for your internal users, but it can do a lot more things. And when you look at it in here, we have private and public sources of information that can pull those, that content. We saw how we can build content, but then very recently, yesterday, we launched our Copilot experience, which is now you can ask it a lot of different things and you can integrate it. So one of the things you can do is things like catch me up, and it will go ahead and pull all the information relevant to you from the CRM, and it'll tell you, hey, you have a total of 6 tasks due in 2 days. You have a whole bunch of other stuff due in here. Additionally, there's 5 non-released decisions. So I can go in and I can open my taskbar here, and I can go and check and kind of complete those tasks through, and I can go to the individual profiles in there as we go through this task. I can also ask it a lot of other things, and one of the things that we talked about is how do I ask it for internal components, right? How do I ask it for elements or institutional specific things? So here's a question that someone internally might ask. It's like, how do I request PTO, right? It will go ahead and pull that from our knowledge base, and it will kind of give us an answer on that. So it's an AI assistant that helps you do work directly in your CRM, and also can provide knowledge discovery and knowledge information for your institution. So in this case, it says, submit your request to the vacation tracker. We use that as our app internally. So would you like assistance with anything else? So if you think about it, this is ChatGPT with your content in your context, in your day-to-day environment in here. So let's continue. So if you use AI, just use it as your data analyst and strategist, right? There's no coding required. So there's 4 things that I've devised here where you should be using AI for working with data files. For some of you, you might say, well, I can't upload my data because I have certain policies. There's tools that you can use with your data, but ChatGPT Pro doesn't train on your data. So if you have a paid version, or even if you have a team version that they introduced today, it doesn't train on your data. It's 0 retention policies in there. If you delete those, if you kind of enable that setting, or if you have enterprise versions of that, it's the same thing, right? For some of you, your IT teams or IT departments might already have versions of ChatGPT Enterprise, which kind of takes care of a lot of the data security. But working with data files, handling diverse data files, really easy, fixed data errors, computing calculations, and even generating new fields, right? This idea of natural language and data is very easy to kind of manipulate data when you know how to say it and what you want to do, but you don't know the techniques or the tools or the analysis in order to kind of produce you those results. The second one is EDA, or exploratory data analysis. Sometimes we have a file, it's really large, we have no idea what it is in terms of what's included in there. The first thing that you do usually is you say, what's the distribution? What are the different value types in this column? What are the dates? What are the patterns? So on and so forth. So it's able to do that automatically. So forget about pivot tables, right? They're a thing of the past. You don't do pivot tables anymore. The last 2, data visualization, huge, because in this case, you have to, of course, use Excel or some other data tool to visualize it, but you can ask it, and in this case, ChatGPT, but other tools, they can have this layer of visualization on top of it. They can present that to you in a really nice way so you can understand it better. And the last one that I put in here is forecasting. This have traditionally been really, really hard to do. Forecasting in any tool, it's really hard to do. So we think that forecasting is now very easy. You can do that really easily in these tools. So you can create forecasting models to predict future trends and outcomes, things like, like a trend analysis or regression model on your prospects or your applicants, or maybe campus visits or things like that. It's really easy to ask the AI to use specific columns to do a forecasting model, or to forecast, applications for the next 2 months, based on this column. One of the things that we like to say is that the most powerful language for working with data today is not Python, it's not SQL, it's actually English. And every one of us know English, so you can ask the systems to actually give you what we need in that terms of data. ChatGPT it's baked in what is called advanced data analysis, so it's part of the same process. And when we go to ChatGPT really quickly in here, I uploaded just before this webinar, what I did is I uploaded an enrollment analytics data set, which we use for our enrollment analytics course. And it has about 10,000 rows. So all I did is I uploaded that sheet in there, the CSV file, and I told it, give me a summary of the data in this file. And it told me, okay, here's a quick summary. There's a number of entities, about 10,000 rows. Data includes about 105 columns or features. There's a mixed data types, about 48 floats and 64 columns and categorical, a bunch of. So essentially it's telling me it's okay, here's some of the sample data, student ID, SIS student ID. And of course, this is synthetic data that we use for the course, right? But we can go in and ask it a lot of other questions, right? So based on this, I can say, what's the average score for ACT composite? So we can do that, right? And it will go ahead and analyze that. And what's doing underneath is actually it's writing code, but of course in interface you're not seeing that, but it's writing code and you're interacting with it naturally, but it's doing the code for you. It's like you have an analyst in there, right? So let's move on. The other tool that really interested in, and really we've been using it for the past year here at Element, it's a tool called hex.tech. I think that's the URL, hex.tech. And really like this tool because what it's done is it has a lot of the natural language stuff, but you can build little mini kind of applications. Sometimes you get afraid of people saying, oh, just use a Python notebook or just do a notebook or something like that. And you're like, whoa, what the hell is that? It's like, I don't even know what that is. So this simplifies it a little bit, right? It simplifies it. It's a little bit more advanced for some users, but they've introduced what they call their magic. So this is kind of an advanced tool, so to speak, right? So again, just keep an eye out for some of these tools, but you can use Hex Magic and then you can see you're just writing things in natural language and it's producing the SQL underneath, it's producing the Python, whatever it needs to query that data sources that you've kind of loaded into it in order to provide kind of visuals and so on and so forth. And of course, we have something very similar to that in Element where we're baking that part of the interface here in Element. This is our Insights dashboard, but we have what we call Insights Queue. That is the same type of interface where you can see over here, you have this little bar and you can start asking questions. Here's just some sample questions. For example, how many students applied over the last 4 years by applicant by month, right? And it's able to give you kind of a table in here. You can go ahead and transform that into a different visual, for example, in here or whatever you want. But this is a natural way of asking your data and getting analysis out of your tools. We believe that this is going to be the future of how you're interacting with your systems, with copilots, and how you're working with data as well and knowledge discovery. It's all through this AI assistance. So at the end of the day, you can say, oh, but I don't want to bring my data over there. And that's why I showed you Insights Queue, right? So you do this analysis where your data is. You can certainly send it to ChatGPT, but you have to be cognizant about the privacy components. And that's why we build a lot of that stuff in Element, so you can do that in there. So this was part 3, AI for productivity. We threw a lot of stuff out there, but the part 4 and 5, AI for teaching and learning, we're going to bring a guest in for that one, and that's going to be on the 24th, and AI Ready Campus. So that is part 5 and is going to essentially conclude the AI series for us here at Enrollify. It's going to include with an AI Ready Campus in terms of how do you evaluate your AI readiness in your campus, and how do you think about putting frameworks in place, or how do you think about, how to pick projects and institute that going forward. So those are the 2 next ones, January 24th at 1 p.m. And then the week after is going to be the last one of these. And of course, we're recording all of these as well. But again, all these webinars are part of the Enrollify network and Enrollify community, where higher ed marketers go to grow. So hopefully you're enjoying this. If you do, please share them. Please give us some feedback if you have them as well. The AI guide that I mentioned originally is available. It's available on the Element 451 site and as well on the Enrollify site. So yes, we will provide links to a lot of these resources. Go back and listen to it again. Listen to Generation AI podcast where we talk about some of these tools. We talk about more tools, specifically episode 4. And we also have links in the show notes to a lot of those tools as well. Again, hopefully everybody got a framework of how to think about productivity, right? Thinking about productivity into 3 different areas for your organization, but also individually as you adopt individual tools, try to make sure you are thoughtful and actually just do, right? Just try. There is no wrong. You can always, kind of change and fix things. So that's super, super important to test things out and to try things out. So please go ahead and try them out. I think that's the best advice that we're going to give you. We can throw you all the tools in the world, but that fear of getting started is something that's hard to bypass. And hopefully we can find small little projects to get started and then go from there and build on it. And like I said, a lot of these tools can be helpful, but some of them were a little bit more advanced because we have a huge mixed audience in here as well. All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate taking your time and joining us today. The next one will be on January 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and I will see you all there. Thank you.